Hello, and welcome to the first episode of the TRU GRIT podcast. My first guest should need no introduction. His name is Dom Deluca, and if you watched MTV's Headbangers Ball in the early 90s, you knew him as Man on the Street's Dom. But if you skated in the last 30 years in Los Angeles, then you definitely knew his shop and or brand, Brooklyn Projects. For me, on a more personal note, I spent a lot of my time in Brooklyn, New York, aimlessly rolling around with not much direction. Dom gave me a job at his first skate shop, Brooklyn House. My time there was spent figuring out what I was going to do with my life. I feel like Dom has helped hundreds of people like this, so let's talk to Dom.
Oh, God. Okay. Dom, thank you very much for being here. Super appreciate it.
Yep.
Obviously, I know you a long time, both Brooklyn guys. Mm-hmm. Pretty cool. I worked at your very first store. But before we get into the past of Dom Deluca, what I really want to do is talk about now and just ask you, I guess first and foremost, how would you introduce yourself? Like if you're meeting someone for the very first time and they're like, oh, what do you do for a living?
What I would do for a living, I guess there's a lot of different things. Sometimes I used to tell people I'm Kaiser Soze, and they'd be like, who? I'm like, all right, never mind. And then I would say I'm like just a jack of all trades. I want to say I'm an entrepreneur, but I don't feel like I live up to that title, even though I am. I have my hand in like 20 different things, which is a blessing, but it's also a curse but if somebody said something, I would just say, I'm so used to saying, oh, I own a skate shop, but it's more than a skate shop. It's a brand. It's a lot of things, but that's like my first go-to is I own a skate shop.
Right. So skate shop, real quick. What is the skate shop?
So I own Brooklyn Projects Skate Shop. We have 2 locations, 3 if you count Japan, which you should. Been doing it for, over 30 years, which is crazy.
That is crazy.
Wow. It's going to be like it's almost like 35 years.
So that's interesting. You're doing this over 35 years, but a few minutes ago you actually said, oh, I don't really feel like I live up to the entrepreneur thing. Why would you say that, although you've clearly been doing this for a long time?
Because I feel like, an entrepreneur, builds businesses and then they eventually sell them off and they have retirement savings and they have 401k. I have none of that. So I guess my shop was a passion of mine, and that became my profession over time. So for the first 25 years, I did other things, music industry, consulting for brands. So I didn't take the shop seriously. I didn't really embed myself too much. So I guess that's why. It was always just a secondary thing. And, even when I had the first shop, Brooklyn House, I worked at a record label. I worked at MTV. I DJ'd. So it was always it was just a man cave that made a little bit of money, but not really. You know what I mean? So
that's an interesting way of putting it. But what was the goal? Was the goal to make money? I guess when you first started it, did you think it was something that would make a lot of money? Or was it really just a man cave or a place to hang out?
In the beginning, it was just something I wanted to do, like a side thing, like DJing. It was just like, and then over time, looking back at what I did in the early 90s with the shop, now that I'm older, it's like had I been given the same situations and stuff like that, I probably would have been like, yo, this isn't worth it. I would have, you worked. There was days there was like, it's not even worth the headache. I never quantified my time into a number like most entrepreneurs do, most business people do, most professionals do. Lately I have been starting to quantify my time, because time is not something you can't get back. And I started realizing that as I got older. And then also as time went on, losing certain friends in my life, it's like, you can never get back that time. So if I'm going to give somebody my time, that's the most valuable thing I can give them. I can't give them anything else. My time is priceless. Also, my Rolodex, quote unquote, my knowledge of the people I know, like for years, and this is like a thing I have a hard time I have a very hard time coming to terms with it, but I spent a good 20 years of my life opening my network of people that I knew to other people, and it actually helped them to succeed And then as time went on and they were sitting in their ivory towers, when it came time to like actually lend me a hand to help me, they would be like, no, like, huh? But then I started looking like, wow, if I didn't help, if it's like the butterfly effect. If I didn't do this, this wouldn't have done this, and this wouldn't have led to this, and this person wouldn't be here.
Do you think those people outwardly know it, or do you think they kind of skate over it? Because I have a tough time personally with that stuff like that. Like, I don't know if people are maliciously forgetting the favors that were done for them, or if it's more that they just didn't see that, oh, he helped me out, you know, at a time when I needed to be helped, you know?
Well, there's some that do it maliciously. I had this conversation with a mentor of mine years and years ago, Leo Cohen. Just catching up with him, talking, and then, he painted the picture like, it's like some of these people, they look at me, and if like a lot of them don't want to like extend the hand that I extend to them because A, they don't want me to supersede them, and B, they don't want me to show that behind the curtain it's like, well, you're not really what you are. They're afraid I'm going to spill the tea, so to speak. But I think some people do it maliciously, absolutely, because, and they do it maliciously by, not answering your phone calls or not answering your texts. So after 2 or 3 times, it's like, well, I'm not going to chase you. And then when you see them, and if you ask them in person, like, oh, I'm busy, so on, and hit me back tomorrow, and they still don't, then well, that's maliciously. You're not that busy.
Yeah.
Nobody's that busy. I'm sorry. And certain people, they're far and few in between. Certain people that I've helped, if I ask them for something, which I rarely do, they oblige with no hesitation. And I found out later on, there's like a nice way of obliging, but not obliging by saying, which I started using this in my daily stuff, is like they say, hey, let me see what I can do. I can't promise you anything, but let me see what I can do. And that's like that was a hard pill for me to swallow, because with me, and you know this, I'm like, I'll take care of it. And it'll put more stress on me to get this person what they needed just because. And I never did anything with the hopes of reciprocation. I never did that because I wasn't accustomed. I wasn't brought up that way. And when we grew up, like working in the music industry or even MTV, whatever, even in the clothing industry back in the day, the streetwear industry, the skate industry, it was like you did things because you're homies and you just wanted to do it because you asked somebody else, hey, oh yeah, sure. It was like, yeah, we'll all help each other. But then early to mid 2000s, people were just like, oh no, I'm getting mine, and you don't see that. You don't see it because you don't want to think that your friend is really not your friend. They're more like frenemies. You know what I mean? That's the God's truth. That's everybody's a frenemy in my book right now.
Well, I think anytime anyone gets a little bit of fame, there's always going to be some of that, right? Like, because and you definitely have had it on different ends, right? Because while you're behind the scenes at the shop in a lot of ways, you have been very out there many times. So I would definitely imagine that you've had people, or even when you did Brooklyn Projects, not that your partners then were like, not that they were anti-you in any way, shape, or form, but you were the guy who was out front. You were the guy who had all the relationships. You were the guy who were kind of like meeting people, and you were the face of it, and everyone asked for Dom. Those guys could sit in the store all day, or myself when I worked there, and no one asked for anyone else. They asked for Dom, right? So there is something that comes with that, which I think is a good thing too, right? Yeah. I mean, there must have been, at the same time, getting off the negative of all this, must have been positive too. There must be people who are great now.
There was plenty of positives. I mean, it was like, it outweighs, I guess, like the positives definitely outweigh the negatives, but the main negative is unfortunately it's purely financial. You know what I mean? It's like there's been times in the past, like for instance, I'm not going to mention his name, but I got a friend of mine, 94, a job at a record company. 2, 3, 4 years later, he became like the vice president of he became like a bigwig at this label. I was just talking to him randomly at lunch one day. We went to get lunch. I went and get some free CDs from him, whatever. And I was talking to him, and he's just like, it came up like, I was like, yeah, I'm looking to, have this band I'm looking at, blah, blah. He's like, oh, you want to how about I pay some money? We'll just do a consultancy gig. I'm like, really? He's like, well, dude, I'm here because of you. I'm like, yeah, that'd be cool. And, and he paid it forward But like that's how I'm used to like people doing that. Like if somebody gave me a job and put me in position, I would do whatever it took to like hook them up.
You know, it's interesting as you were saying it. It kind of occurred to me too. Do you think it's an East Coast or even specifically a Brooklyn thing? Because
it's a Brooklyn thing.
I think everyone always tries to act like New York and Brooklyn people are so shitty there, but they're not. They're actually like in real deal Brooklyn. If you help someone, they help you the fucking end.
It's the transplants in New York that fuck it up. But if you're born and raised in Brooklyn, you're that's how we did things because we didn't have much.
Tip, you help people.
Right.
Someone helps you, you help them.
Right.
Yeah.
It's not. It's like it's a family thing. That's what it is.
Yeah.
And and I've learned that it's I still make mistakes, but now like I said, like going back to time, it's funny. I'm my office. I have this hourglass, a sand hourglass. It's I think it's like 5 minutes. So when people sometimes now when they come into my office, hey, I want to talk. I'm like, cool. I flip it, and
do they realize it?
Yeah, they see me doing that, and they're like, funny. Okay, they don't say anything, so they're talking, and then it stops. I go, okay, I put it down. I go, all right, we're done. They're like, what? I'm like, that's 5 minutes. Like, wait, did you really time me? I go, yeah, it's an hourglass. It's taking old school. He's like, and they just look like dumbfounded. I go, what? I said, listen, if you can't tell me what you want, like 5 minutes. That's it. If there was something there, I don't have time to give you that. I gave you 5 minutes of my time.
Just bullshit, otherwise.
Right. Yeah. I don't want to. And I do that now sometimes. Like I have this picture on my phone of an old school fare thing on a taxi cab. So when some people text me, go back and forth, and I give them little bits of information. Before I used to whatever you need. Now I just send them when they ask me something. I send that image like, what's that? I said, the free ride is over. Now the fare starts, so you got to pay me.
That's also fair.
And it's like it's the days of doing things for free for people. Listen, I still do for like whatever you close friends, because you and I, for instance, I tell my girlfriend this. It's like you're one of the only people. Like literally, I can count on two hands. Like I've known you so long, but like I know you're busy. Your work is impeccable. You're like up here, but we're friends. Listen, if I was a billionaire and I would fucking throw you anything you want, but you still wouldn't ask. But it's like we're friends. We're friends. So it's like, hey, can you do this for me? Yeah, dude. Next week we'll do this. I'm like, cool. And we just do it on a shoestring budget. If everybody was like that in life, we'd all be so further along.
I couldn't agree more with that statement. That is so true because but I agree. I mean, there's so many people. It's such a bummer that you go, you help people, you extend yourself for people, and then they turn around, they just
forget.
Don't return. They forget. They forget. And whatever reason they forget. And that is a terrible thing. But it's like, but then why do you keep going is a great question. Like, because you could do other things, and you've had your hands in other industries. You have. And you could just say one day, fuck this shit, I'll go do something else.
You know why, dude? I came to this crossroads a year ago.
Just a year ago?
Just a year ago.
Wow, that's pretty good.
Literally. I sat there. I just sat there in my office after work. And I'm like, what the fuck am I doing? Like, why? I had a tough week. Like, why? It's not even worth it. But then, what am I going to do? I built this image. I built this thing that serves a community, that serves the kids. And then I think, jokingly, I say, well, let's see the kids first. Okay, if I close down and get rid of everything, they'll get other jobs. They can give a fuck. The merchandise, I could sell it off. I don't care. But then what am I going to do? I'm 50-something years old. What am I going to do? I've embedded myself into the foundation of the building. So it's like there's nothing, I can do. But, I started, as of late, thinking of exit plan because on one hand, I think it's cool, like when you look at a old school store like Val Surf or Rip City Gym is still there since 1973. So he's still there.
Yeah.
70 years old. But he did it at a time where, he owns the building. He has I don't have any of that. So now it's like I have to start hedging my bets and really setting something up for a retirement where I can have the shop, but then I can go not come into the store every day and just have it or sell it off and be a face of it still. And I have to start thinking like that and let go of control. Because now it's time to do it. I can't because I thought like when I was in my 30s, oh, when I'm 40, I'm going to be like this, and I'm going to sell this off. And then 40 come, by the time I'm 50, I can't do this anymore. I'm going to be here. Now I'm going to be 60 soon in 5 years.
Yeah.
I can't see myself being 65 years old at a shop.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? It's hard.
Yeah, those kids get younger and dumber.
Exactly. Yes.
I mean, in fairness, they're really not. But I know as I get older, everyone else seems dumber, right? It's just how it's kind of the way it goes.
But I teach them, and I tell them, I go, look, you may not make the most money here, but you're going to learn more than you'll learn in any other job, because I'm going to teach you shit that nobody else, if you want to learn. And certain people take that and run with it. My friend, the kid CJ that worked for me, he took everything I gave him, and now he's like doing fucking camera work for Netflix shows and doing this job and this fucking camera work, and then he's just all over the place. But I love it. He's very creative, and he took what I gave him. But some people just they don't get it.
Yeah, you can't teach anyone, but I do think there is something really amazing about shop culture in general that it always gives kids a constructive kind of place to be and stuff to do, which is really you didn't get into it for public service, but there is a public service there for sure. There is something there that there are kids who are so much better off because of it, and they've grown. Me working at your store set me on a better path than I was on at the time, and I think I've met kids at your newer shops, and definitely that's the case with them too. They would have gone down weird black holes in life if they didn't, they didn't have something else to kind of attach to.
I mean, that's why the shop is there. The reason I wanted to do a shop, to be honest with you, is when my dad passed away, one of the places, I don't have brothers or sisters.
And your family had a business, right?
He did. He had a camera store in Manhattan that he got rid of. Well, my dad died. He lost it. But, the place I found solace in, because all my friends, they all moved to your neck of the woods. They all moved to Canarsie and stuff. So I'd ride my BMX bike there. And the place, when my dad died, the place I would find solace was going to Marine Park bikes.
Oh, wow. That's
because
crazy.
I would go there, and this little shitty thing on Quentin Road and Bedford Avenue, you go in there, and it was I'm seeing, stuff I'm seeing in magazines, the bikes, and it was just but the kids there, from Chiwe and Paul Mackles and
I haven't heard the name Chiwe in years. That's amazing. Yeah,
right.
Yeah,
but he's a Christian, so I want to be, and but I was oh wow, they have all the Vision Street, they had everything there, and it was such a eclectic group of kids, and I found Brooks Manbeck, everybody.
Yeah.
It was a place that made me forget going home, and I would get sad because my dad's not there. But that going there, and I was you know what? It stuck in me, and I always wanted to have that atmosphere. So that's why I opened up Brooklyn House, was having that something to do.
Is that why you opened it near Marine Park? Is it kind of that same? Oh wow! See, I never knew that, because I was wondering, because I always felt like you were. Being that you're on MTV and you worked at record labels, I always thought, why didn't this guy open this closer to the city? He went obscure. This shop was I grew up in that area, but Marine Park, Brooklyn is just not the Brooklyn everyone thinks of when they think of Brooklyn.
It's so far. You had to take it's crazy, but unless you drove, you had to take 2-3 buses or a train from Manhattan. You had to take a train and 2 buses, and it was very, very hard to get to. Very hard to get to. But I did it because it was the closest to Marine Park bikes, and it was also the closest to where I hung out. Also was to be honest, the other thing was I would hang out at Marine Park bikes, and the other place I was hanging out with was around the corner, Gerritsen Beach.
Cherry Hill. Yeah, that's funny.
The Bowl.
Yeah. Oh, the Bowl. Okay, yeah. Wow.
Artie, Brooks. I would go there, and I would just.
Wow, that's a long time.
I would just yeah. So I was wow, and the fact that when we found this store, I was wow, this is the place where I fucking hung out all the time, Kings Plaza. So I wanted to be in this area that I kind of grew up in a way. I didn't grow up in my neighborhood. I grew up there because all my friends moved, and that's where I got into BMX, was going to my friend Mike D'Amico and Pat fucking McCormick and Joey Zampella and his brother.
Life of Agony.
Life of Agony. I would go to Quentin. They lived on Avenue N in Utica.
Yeah.
And it was I went there and I was like, holy shit! And I get all these people like BMX bikes, and then between Marine Park bikes, and then there was the Avenue U bicycle shop, and then Mangano's was on Avenue U and fucking Ocean Parkway right by. So I was like, it was like this BMX little.
No, I remember. That's funny because I haven't thought of that shop in a long time. But yeah, that's right. Fuck,
and I'd go in there and I'm like, oh my, the stickers and everything you would see was like in the magazine. You would see these shops because where I lived in like basically Bensonhurst, there was no bike shop. There was one, and it was like Mongooses, and that's it. And then when I started racing, you go to like JV Bicycles in Jersey, and it was like, holy shit, like what the fuck is this, you know? And so that's why I was kind of like, that's the reason why I went there. You know,
it's a weird thing growing up where we grew up because you knew New York was cooler, but when it came to the stuff that we were into, stuff like Jersey was better, right?
Yeah,
because they had better shops,
yep.
They had better,
yep.
They had skate parks back in the day, they had BMX tracks, they had things that we just didn't have. Yeah, it's pretty amazing that way. Like, you know, like all Jersey, you guys had no idea how
Jersey was like, that was the track I went to was Weehawken, was Braddock. That was the fucking shit.
That's the wooden one, right?
No,
that
was
the
dirt.
Wooden one. Yeah,
the wooden one was that was in Egg Harbor City.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that was the indoor track at the Armory.
Oh, the Armory. That's right. Yeah, I've heard it. I've never went there, but I've always heard about it.
I went and I remember like just like sliding, racing there, and then like people would just like go across the street or a couple blocks away to the drugstore and get like Vitalis hairspray and spray your tires. And I'm like, what the fuck? And I did it because one of the kids there, like, I tried it. And I was like, wow, you don't slip as much. And but it was like really, I had pictures like wooden, like crazy, like wooden jumps and like gym floor, or not gym, it was like a concrete floor. It was like
there weren't even really jumps though, right? There was just like plywood stack kind of.
Yeah, it was like it
wasn't like done up well.
No. Yeah. But then the whoop-de-doos were like actually like you couldn't like you had to jump the whole thing. You couldn't go. There wasn't enough room to go over it. It was fucked up, man.
It's pretty amazing, actually.
Yeah, it's actually really good.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
I really, it's funny. See, this is why I love doing this because this is things I did not know about you, and I know a lot about you actually.
Yeah, you know most. Yeah, you know a lot.
So going back to like those times, but moving up a little bit, what got you into record labels and then eventually on MTV?
Yeah, it's a story that's been told a million times, but uncles of mine own a club in Brooklyn, Lemoore. Mm-hmm. Which was, people that don't know, was like a heavy metal club.
The heavy metal club.
That put every band on the map.
Yes.
Period.
That's accurate. Very accurate. Very accurate statement.
You name it, they've all started there and played in front of 5 people. Metallica, Slayer. I mean, West Coast had the Whiskey, Gazaris. Brooklyn had Lemoore. And I would go there and started befriending all these bands in their early years.
Were you already into metal, or did you get into it because you went there?
So I got into it. I got into metal. I was always into hip hop and breakdancing and graffiti.
Yeah.
In 1981, when my best friend in my building moved to Canarsie, and that's where I met all those kids, I got into like Sabbath, and I got into Maiden and Priest. I was like, oh wow. And then my uncles turned the club from a disco to heavy metal thing, and I started going there, and I just started getting into heavy metal. And then when I got kicked out of Catholic school in 1983, I went to Midwood in 1984, and then I started hanging out with the metalheads there because we didn't have metalheads in Bishop Ford. It was all Guidos. Yeah. And I started, Johnny Kelly, John Meeks.
Well, explain what a Guido is for people who don't know, because only
Jersey Shore.
Only people from Brooklyn will know.
Jersey Shore is a Guido. GTL. Like that's like growing up, like literally Paulie D and fucking the situation. I grew up around that my whole life. And the thing growing up in Brooklyn, it's kind of funny, but like I was definitely odd. I didn't have any really clique I grew up with. Like, it's funny, but when I hung out with my Italian friends, I had long hair. They would call me, I get this and this and that and all this shit, But then hung out with my black friends, and I would get Snow Bunny, crack. So I didn't have like, so that's all. When I went to Midwood, it was actually cool because wow, I kind of like fit in a little bit, and then I started hanging out with the metalheads, and then when I started going to Canarsie, it was like, oh wow, I found my place. I should be living here, and I started just like going to the club and started befriending these bands, and then soon after, again when my pops died, I went on the road, some smaller bands, and then I started going on the road with a band like Anthrax, and started seeing the world. I got kicked out of high school, but that shit saved me. Started working for bands, and then I started when I wasn't touring, I started working with my friend Scott Koenig, who I think you met, who passed away. He took me, and I worked at Def Jam Rush Management, and started hanging out on my off days in downtown, Soho, going to CBGBs, hardcore bands, but then befriending the Beastie Boys, and just like I started becoming in the mix of this whole movement. I was in the mix at a very young age, and fast forward years later, I would always again paying it forward. I would always be the dude that I would get people into shows like, oh, if I know the band, I'll get you in. I'll get you passes, whatever. And that got me my gig on MTV because there was this group of people I would see at some bigger shows in New York. And long story short, I would always see them, and I always see them backstage, and they looked it was three ladies at the time, ladies. They were in their 30s probably, yeah. But to me, in my barely 21,
now it seems like a kid.
Yeah.
Then they're women, now they're kids.
Right. But I would always see them, and I just hello, just being friendly because they're always backstage, always at the VIP. And I remember one show they were having an issue with their passes, and they were at the box office, and I overheard them, and I'm like, oh. And I was like, hey, are you guys okay? I don't know you guys, but I always see you, everything. Oh no, it's fine. We work at MTV, and I'm like, oh. I said, oh, I got you. What do you need? And then I went backstage, and I think it was Biohazard, Korn, Rage Against the Machine. No, Biohazard, Korn, House of Pain at the Roseland. That's where it was.
Wow. So this is random, and you wouldn't remember this because I know we didn't talk that night. I was at a House of Pain concert once, and I saw you at the table fighting with someone about some VIP tickets. This is a real true story because we had just met recently.
Yeah.
And I heard the shop was coming.
Yeah.
And I was going in, and I was
that
going
was
to meet
the show.
friends, and I saw you going, no, listen, I'm Dominic, and you need, and you were yelling at the guys. I was like, oh, that's that dude Dom, crazy, and I just moved it on. And I also remember I dropped $1, and some dude tried to grab it. We almost got into a fight. Very random. But
that was the show.
That was the show. Yeah, I remember that
so
one. That's awesome. Roseland.
And that was the jettison because I got them in, and I introduced myself, and long story short, we were talking, and they saw that I knew everybody, but not only did I know everybody backstage, like the bands and the roadies, but when I was going out into the crowd, I knew a lot of the kids that were my age, but because I was always friendly, I was always in the mix, always hanging out.
You were the guy.
I was the guy.
You were the guy. Yeah.
So outside, I was talking to them. I think I was waiting for a ride or cab, and I was talking to them. They're like, "Oh my God, here's our cards." I said, "You know what? I need a job." I asked them, "I just need a job." I didn't want to go on the road anymore. I was working at a jewelry store too, selling high-end jewelry. Go figure. I just wanted something different, and I wanted to work in music. And I said, is there anything I could do, file papers, sweep? I didn't know what MTV was, Viacom.
Yeah.
They're like, it's funny, we were talking about this, and you could call us tomorrow, and we're going to set a meeting up. Cool, I did. And a week later, they took me around the offices and stuff. I started seeing everybody, meeting all these people that I didn't know who they were, but apparently, later on I found out they're the president of MTV, the vice president of MTV, the head of but they just loved me because I was I didn't give a fuck.
Yeah.
Oh, hey, So
young Dom, don't give a fuck.
Super young Dom, and rest in peace, Ted Demme, who created Yo MTV Raps. And he was Jonathan Demme, his uncle, did Silence of the Lambs, but Ted Demme did Who's the Man. He's a prolific filmmaker. He also created MTV Raps, and he was just like, before he passed away, when I got my job in MTV, he wanted to make me the East Coast version of Pauly Shore, the Weasel, because I had my whole Brooklyn heavy metal shtick going on. So he's like, wow, this is really good. But before that even happened, I went and met everybody. They're like, okay, so Thursday night, you're going to meet us at the Scrap Bar in Manhattan. I'm like, okay. So I go.
How old are you here now? Are you like 21, like bar age,
No,
or are you younger?
I'm 20.
Okay, yeah.
I'm 20. Actually, no, I'm 19.
Damn.
I'm 20. I'm 20. Because I had my 21st birthday at MTV, and they had Lemmy sing "Happy Birthday" to me. I got a video of that.
Amazing.
At the Rainbow. It's random, but I was 20, and and for those that don't know, like back then, to be on MTV, if you're on MTV back then, you were like fucking the biggest internet celebrity. Fucking, you're like the Kardashians. You're up here
because there was no internet.
There was no internet. It was like 5 network TV channels
Yeah.
and then MTV.
Right.
And MTV was God. It controlled everything in culture. You're on MTV in even the smallest capacity. You're there. You're on top of the world.
That is really so hard to convey now because like MTV now is nothing compared to what it was. Like it was
it's like
different world.
Being on MTV was like having 100 million followers on Instagram, or 100 million followers on TikTok. It's like that.
It's exactly what it was. Yeah.
So then I went to the Scrap Bar.
So you were the first influencer,
pretty much.
in a lot of ways.
In a lot of ways, because I used to wear. That's how I got the shop started.
Yeah.
So I went to the Scrap Bar, and they're there talking to. They're there, with cameras and all that. And I look. I'm like, holy shit, it's Ricky Rackman.
Yeah.
I'm like, whoa. The host of Headbangers Ball. I'm like, what the fuck? And, I'm like, what am I doing here? They're like, oh, hi, Dom. Introduce me to Ricky. Ricky's like, kind of like whatever to me. And then they're like, okay, so we're going to go to this next place, which was the Marquee. And I remember it was Ugly Kid Joe and Scatterbrain they were playing. And I know those guys. I went to the Marquee with them. We're upstairs on the little VIP section, and this camera guy comes up to me. He's like, "Hey, with the mic pack," and I'm like, "What's this?" They're like, "Aren't you on air? You're on air talent." I'm like, "What? No, I had this."
They didn't even tell you.
No, I just gave me a board. What's it called? A clipboard with a bunch of questions. I thought I'm like. Reading questions off. I don't know what the fuck I was doing.
So you haven't been hired or anything. There's no contract. There's nothing like that.
No.
Right. So they're just like, you're going on TV.
You're going on TV. We're gonna. So I'm like,
interesting way of doing it.
I'm like, no. And then Nancy, my producer, who's Headbangers Ball at the time, she comes up. She goes, "Hey Dom." She goes, "No, we want you to. We saw how you interacted with the kids and all that. We thought it's a great idea to do this like man on the street thing where you go into the crowd." I'm like, "No, I don't want to do that. No." And this, another friend of mine, another person there, producer Eva, she's like, no, you have to do it, Dom. We told her about you. They love you. You need to do this. I'm like, I don't want to do it. I didn't want to do it. I just felt like, what the fuck? Like, no, you're a total natural. Just do it. I'm like, so.
It had to be a big camera back then too, right? Like I imagine.
Like,
there's no little shit. It's like a
no, and I had a mic.
When you're doing it, it's a fucking spectacle.
Right.
Light on you, everything.
Right.
In a dark club.
In a dark club. And then the thing is, once the light and they see that big MTV thing, it's like, whoa. So then I started doing it, and I was like, oh my God, and the kids just, I'm kind of like not, I'm having a hard time. And thank God, Whitfield from Ugly Kid Joe, who I knew, came out, he's like, what the hell? And then we were both talking, and I got comfortable, and then we started talking shit. And then I started answering questions, asking questions to the kids, blah, blah. Then I started talking to Scatterbrain, and I made this demo, basically. And then sure enough, it aired with no contract. Quick 30 like a minute segment.
Yeah.
But they loved it, and they're like, hey, everybody loves it. We want to give you a contract. And they gave me a contract, and
And that was it.
It was it.
That's pretty amazing. See, because I think one of the things that's hard, like you talking about now, but even when we're talking about metal and even talking about skate shops, we're talking about these things the way everyone knows them now. Like everyone knows all this stuff. But metal, when you were talking about, was still very new for a lot of people.
Yeah.
Like that was a new genre, and which is crazy to think about now, but it was.
Like
MTV was not a thing really. I mean, it was definitely
No,
a
but
thing,
it was
but
right before it peaked.
Yeah,
it was
yeah.
1991, 92. That's when the whole world changed. Like, it was like metal was big, Slayer, Metallica, but then like you had like Nirvana, Pearl Jam,
Right.
Korn,
Right.
Limp Bizkit. It was just like this big Woodstock.
Yep.
It was like MTV generation.
Right. Which is like, it's very hard to put into perspective. But I mean, honestly, you were on the forefront of a lot of these things, which is really, really cool. Looking back at that, I'm curious, when you first started doing like these men on the streets things, what's a segment that you feel like was so fucking psyched on that segment because you caught someone new or caught a moment that no one else could have?
There was two. There was actually three.
All right, three. Nice.
So one was at one of these shows at the Roseland. I forgot who it was, but I was interviewing kids. And there was this one dude, he looked like I remember he smelled really bad. He had like blonde, dreadish hair, dreads, and he just looked like he just rolled out of fucking like a dumpster somewhere.
Right.
And they're like, oh, that guy looks really weird. Like, he looks interesting. You should go talk to him. I'm like, all right. So I started talking to him, asking questions. And lo and behold, it was the singer of this new band that just got signed called Soul Asylum. Oh. And I'm talking to him, and literally not even a year later, Runaway Train. It's like the biggest thing. You couldn't go anywhere without hearing that. And they were like, winning awards. But I caught him right when he got his record deal, and he was at the show, and I just caught him. So that was like, whoa, you know what I mean? The second thing was for me, and it aired, and they didn't understand, the MTV people didn't understand, but we were at a show. It was Body Count and Megadeth and Suicidal Tendencies.
That's crazy.
Yeah, at the Ritz.
Nice.
So I'm doing things, I'm fucking talking to kids, and all of a sudden, I see this. They see me, and I'm just like, whoa. And they're like I saw a ghost, and I saw this. I was like, holy shit. I said, come with me. Fucking follow me. Come on. I run up to this big 6'4", 6'5" black dude wearing a fur coat, gold. And I was like, Eric B. It was Eric B. from Eric B. and Rakim. Now, they didn't know who the fuck he was. Like, he came to see Ice-T and Body Count.
Right.
But I'm just losing my shit.
Yeah, that's not his crowd. Right.
Right, and he's just like, oh, long hair. He's like, he's happy because, like, he's
Someone
getting
knows
it.
him.
Yeah, but I'm like really fanning out, and I tell him the story, and we caught this moment. They didn't air. I have the tape. They aired like one, I didn't even ask him questions. I was just catching up, but they caught it, and it was like so weird because I'm talking to him like two old friends. 4 years prior to that, I'll never forget this. Me and Scott Koenig were at Rush Management, and Lior had asked us to go there and pack, hundreds of boxes for Will Smith and the Fresh Jazzy Jeff as DJ for they're going on tour, and we had to pack their tour gear that they're wearing by this brand called Le Coq Sportif. We had to pack all this shit on a Sunday afternoon to get ready for Monday to pick up and send to him in Europe. This whole thing, so we were there, and the phone kept on ringing at Rush, and Scott was like, yo, answer it. I'm like, okay. And I said, yo, man, somebody keeps on hanging up. Oh, fucking, because I can go, hello, and they keep on hanging up. I'm like, what the fuck? So after 3 times, it stopped, right? Now, granted, Rush was on Ludlow Street, 298, not Ludlow Street, 298 Elizabeth Street, and there was nothing there. It was like no man's land. It was really bad, Lower East Side.
Yeah.
On a Sunday, it was sketch. And now the buzzer's ringing to the front door. Now, what the hell? I was like, Scott, the buzzer's ringing. Like, who is it? I go, I don't know. Look at the fucking window. I'm peeking out the blinds. I'm like, I don't see anybody. And then the phone rings. And I go, hello, hello. And they hung up again. I'm like, I said, Scott, there's a Rolls Royce outside. He's like, what? I said, there's a Rolls Royce outside. He goes, I don't know. And the buzzer rings again. I go, I open it. I just go to the door and open it. And I look. I'm like, it's Eric B. He's like, is Leo here? I'm like, no. He's like, what y'all doing? I'm like, oh, well, whatever. And I was like, oh my God, you're Eric B. And and I fanned out, and he's like, all right, okay. And he just left. Like, get the fuck out of here. But I told him that story, and he remembered that story.
That's crazy.
And he was like, oh my God. He's like, oh, like, I remember you. Like, I was like, you do? He's like, well, man, ain't no white boys with long hair working, like, yeah. And I was like, we just caught up, and I was like, holy shit. That was huge for me.
That is huge. That's amazing right there.
Yeah, so those are the two, like, I would say are really, like.
That's awesome. So just with that, like, so what's a good
another one more?
Oh, there was a third. Yep, sorry.
It didn't air because he was just a mess. But it was one of those final interviews, Gigi Allen.
Oh, really?
At the Stone Pony.
Oh, that's interesting. I didn't know you even would have had crossover with him, actually.
I went.
Yeah.
I had to do a segment, and there was we've done so much shit in New York and this club, that club. I said, what about Gigi Allen and Stone Pony? Because they had like one or two metal bands opening up, and I saw him and I started to talk to him, and he was so fucking out there. It didn't air because he was just like cursing and like just all fucked up. And,
right.
And I was like, whoa! I just interviewed like Gigi Allen.
Pretty amazing. I mean, that's even if it didn't air, that's a pretty good one. That's rock history any way you look at it. I mean, it's amazing to me still how much people still know who he is.
Yeah.
And when you think about how much, honestly, he was kept down, literally.
Oh, my God.
I think it's incredible that he's been able to push, obviously he's not around, but he was able to push, his persona has pushed through all these years later.
His reputation preceded him, like, you know what I mean?
Yeah. For sure. So it's interesting. So, now you're just a normal kid from Brooklyn, really. I mean, normal's not the right way of putting it, but you're a special kid from Brooklyn.
Yeah.
We don't want to say special either. It's weird. But, no, but like with the accolades that come with that, I mean, it's interesting when you really think about it, because all these big stars, obviously these bands are big and everything, but they're watching MTV because that's all there was back then. There was no Instagram. There wasn't this other stuff. So they're watching Headbangers Ball and they're seeing you. So you're getting famous with like some pretty heavy hitters. What was the moment, or was there a moment where you really were like, what the fuck, that person knows me? Like, was there that, or did that ever happen, or was there moments of like that?
There was a couple of moments. So I didn't think, there's a couple, so I really didn't accept my fame. I always, so there's a couple of things, like, for instance, I remember getting my first batch of fan mail, right?
Oh, that's great. Yeah,
I still have it.
Fan mail, right?
Yeah, I still have the box.
Because there was fan mail back then,
yeah,
right?
People used to write you letters, and, And I remember the first month I was on MTV, I got like 150 letters. And I was like, holy shit. So I wrote everyone back.
Wow.
The second one. And it was, a lot of people, letters from jail. They would watch me in like correctional facilities and so on and so forth. And I remember my producer Nancy saw me, and she's like, wait a minute. She's like, are you putting your home address on these? I'm like, yeah. She goes, no, you're not supposed to do it. I'm like, why not? Like, no, Dom, no. And then she gave me like a box of MTV letterhead stuff. Long story short, I wrote this one. I was going back and forth with this one chick. Had no idea what the fuck she looked like, whatever. She was nice. And she's like, oh, yeah, I found your address on a map.
Oh, my God.
And I was like, oh, cool. I said, yeah, if you're ever in New York, come fucking look me up, and then we'll hang out and stuff.
Of course she did. Where was she from? Do you remember by any chance?
Lawrence, Kansas.
Oh, yeah, that.
So.
Stalker.
Yeah, well, dude, I remember I had this like overpossessive, like crazy girlfriend at the time. I remember I was at my place, and the buzzer was ringing. And I'm like, hello, and nobody answered. And then like 5 minutes later, my front door buzzer was ringing in my apartment. I open it, and it's like this chubby blonde chick, like blonde hair chick, with a suitcase, and she's just like like, oh my God. I'm like, are you like, what's up? Like, who? She's like, it's me. It's Shannon. I'm like, Shannon. I'm like, from Kansas. You know. I'm like, oh. I go. What are you doing? She's like, well, you told me to look you up, and I took a bus, and I took a train and another train. She took a bus, 4-day bus trip. I'm like, what the fuck? So I let her in.
Why would you let her in? I mean, I guess you just not know.
What the fuck am I gonna? I was like, you know.
Fair enough.
And I was like, listen, you can't stay here. My girlfriend's gonna come over, and like it's gonna be. She's like, well, where am I gonna stay? I was like, I don't know. And then sure enough, my girlfriend comes over and sees this. I'm like, look, it's not what you think. I mean, and at the time, it was just really weird. So I got her a hotel room in Brooklyn, the hotel that everybody used to go there and fuck for the hourly rate off of
Golden Gate.
On the Bell Parkway.
Yeah. The one on Emmons Avenue.
Yes.
Yeah. Golden Gate.
I got her a room
Golden
there.
Gate.
And then the next day,
It just recently got knocked down or something.
I got her a room there, and the next day I picked her up. I took her to MTV, I showed her around, But then, like, that night, I bought her a ticket to go back.
Oh, wow.
So I bought her a bus ticket, and I dropped off the Greyhound, and that was it. And I learned my lesson. Yeah. So that was one thing. Another time, there was a kid that looked exactly like me that was going. It's a club in Jersey. Oh fuck! I forgot the name of this club in Jersey. There's a club in Jersey
I
that
only know Stone Pony.
it wasn't Stone Pony. It was in South Jersey. There's so many shows there. It's killing me. But he looked exactly like me, dressed like me. Like look what I wore, and the whole.
Was he pretending to be you too?
Yes.
Oh, that's nice.
Because
That's terrible.
Because I went there for a show, and I remember everybody's being really overly nice. I'm with two of my friends, and everybody's like, it's just weird. And then I went to the bar. She's like, oh my God, you finished those so quickly. I'm like, what do you mean? She's like, those 2 drinks I just gave you. I'm like, no. She's like, okay, whatever. She thought I was fucking stupid or
you
drunk.
were at the same time as this guy.
Yeah, yes. So we're going, and then girls come there. Oh my God, you never called me from last week. I'm like, or 2 weeks. I'm like, I never met you. She goes, what are you talking about? Like, I'm like, whatever. And then like, I see my 2 friends. I go, yo, it's crazy, but like, he's like, dude, I know it's kind of weird because we were talking to you, and this other dude is like, yeah, last week I gave you guys my demo. Like, I gave him my demo. He never said anything, and they're like, no, like we. So then the night goes on, and one of my friends comes up to me. He's like, dude, you got to see this. I'm like, what? Like, yo, we found you. I'm like, what? He's like, I go into one corner of the fucking club, and he's sitting on a couch. And like the dude, I swear to God, like from like 10 feet away, he's got like the shorts I had on. He got like the shirt I had on from the last week. He's got my hair. He looks like me. And
do you realize that right away? Like, do you see it and you're like, oh shit, that's me?
Yeah. I'm like, whoa, that dude is like ripping, like, doppelganger. I'm like, what the fuck? I go up to him, and he's like, yeah, blah blah blah. And my friends go up to him like, they're like the first line. They go up to him. They go, yo, MTV Dom. He's like, hey, what up, man? Oh yeah. And I'm like, I go, yo, what's up? He looked at me. He goes, oh shit. This whole thing, and then the promoter of the club, or the owner of the club, the manager is like, what the fuck? And then I told him, he's like, yeah, I thought when you came here, I thought you were gonna come film, because he's been telling me you're gonna come film, but it's not you. I'm like, so this guy's been coming there for free for like a month and a half, saying I'm gonna bring my camera crew and getting free drinks. My God. So I had to he got kicked out.
Yeah, and you also have to now make that better with those people.
I eventually I did. I did a shoot there a week later, 2 weeks later, or whatever the fuck. But like that was really trippy.
Yeah.
Then the third thing that really, so in New York, everybody knew me, so I was famous, but I really wasn't. Everybody knew me. It wasn't like I was getting mobbed. Yeah, I was getting autographs, whatever. Everybody knew me, so it wasn't a big deal. But I remember where I really realized what I had, or not who I was, but the celebrity I had, is I went to Minneapolis, and I was going to go hitch a ride and hang out with the guys at Anthrax. It was Anthrax, White Zombie, and Quicksand, and started the tours in Minneapolis. And I go there, I fly in, and, backstage, got my credentials hanging out. And then I go out into the crowd when it's dark, to see Quicksand. So I'm watching him from the side of the stage. I want to watch a couple songs from in the audience. I'm watching. I'm like, fuck. I'm just, you know. And then the band's off. I'm like, all right. I'm like maybe 20 yards away from the side of the stage to go backstage, this big fucking place. And it was like a big venue. I forgot what it was, but it was like 10,000 seater. It was huge. And I was like, okay, the lights go on. And I start to walk, and everybody's like, and I'm like, yo. And I start getting mobbed.
Damn.
So I'm signing things, and now I'm getting my hair pulled. I'm getting groped. I'm signing shoes and hats, and like, what the fuck? And then I see one of the roadies from Anthrax, and he sees me, and I'm like, help, you know. So all of a sudden, like, a bunch of roadies come running out, and they fucking literally grab me and pull me through the thing. My shirt is ripped. Like I was like, whoa. And then the band was making fun of me to like Quicksand was like, oh man, we saw you. It's like pretty funny. You were like kind of freaking out. I was like, dude, it's like, yeah, man, you're more famous than us. I'm like, and I was just like, I was like in the mix. And then the next day I go and we're leaving the hotel, and the hotel was like a couple blocks away from the record store where Anthrax was doing an autograph signing. And it was funny. It was me, Scott, and Charlie. Scott's the guitar player, Charlie's the drummer for Anthrax. We're walking, and it was like 4 or 5 fans. They come rushing Scott, like, oh, Bullock, can you sign this? Charlie's right next to me. They don't realize who Charlie is, and they go, oh, Dom MTV, can you sign this too? I'm like, yeah, sure. And then we go to the record store. They're setting up for the thing. There's literally like 300 people waiting to sign the record, and I'm looking at records. And then I'm just like, I'm gonna go back to my hotel room and chill. So I go, and they're signing, and the kids are like, oh shit, can you sign this? So I start signing the record too, and next thing you know, Anthrax like, dude, just take a seat and sign, just be a part of it. I'm like, what? They're like, yeah. I'm like, okay. I was like, this is weird. He's like, yeah, it's surreal. It's fucking, but they love it because it's like they put me on. They're like my true family, and I'm like the 7th member of the band. I'm signing their record, like you know, and it was so fucking funny, and that's why I realized like, wow, this is like pretty, like. I'm famous.
Yeah, it's so trippy to think right now. So there's some dude right now that has an Anthrax album on his
with my signature,
wall, with your signature on the wall. But it also makes sense. I mean, from the stuff that you did. One of the things that I wanted to talk to you about, that one of the reasons of even doing this podcast, and we kind of talked about this a little bit before we started, but I wanted to throw this back at you.
Chestnut checkers.
Set it up a little bit. Chestnut checkers. Well, yeah, I'm not taking your idea. You have your own idea. But very similar. I can't say.
And I can't say cavalry.
Really? You just said perfect.
I know, but
I won't ask you to say it.
When I started doing, yeah, no.
There's certain words just throw me, so I won't even go back to it. But no, but what I realize is we live in this weird world where everyone tries to just front who the fuck they are, and it's also, besides being bullshit, because there's people who grind every day, who have good lives, who have decent lives. They can make their car payments, they can make their rent, they can take care of a family, but it's work. You know what I mean? But there's also a lot of joy that comes from it. And when I hear you tell some of these stories, it's like, you've had this really fucking incredible, amazing life, you know? You've got to be a rock star, but you weren't a rock star, right? Like, really, you
I was Forrest Gump.
Yeah. In a lot of ways you are, right? and then you've had shops, and you've met so many people through that. Like, I mean, there's kids on this earth, there's guys on this earth, there's girls on this earth that they just wish they can meet a certain pro skater. You've met all of them. You know what I mean? That type of thing. And same with rock stars. How do you feel about that sometimes, like in the position you're in? Because, yeah, okay, like you said before, you can't retire right now, but you still do it, and you make it happen, and you literally make it happen for other people. And we're not talking about the people who don't reciprocate, but we're talking about the people who do. We're talking about people in general. Do you find joy in that anyway? You know what I mean? Do you feel good, like when you see a kid like come up and you're like, thank God I helped with that, you know? Or, you know, like, how's that work?
I mean, you know, they have that expression, like, with the guys, maybe with the girls, like Captain Save a Ho, you put your cape on. But I'm like Captain Save a Ho for everybody. You know what I mean? Like I am. If somebody has a busted wing, I'm drawn to somebody that's already broken and damaged, because I've been that person, and I can tell the mannerisms. I can the idiosyncrasies. Like I could tell when somebody's got something, and I just feel compelled to, you know, help them. I remember, like, you know, it wasn't a failure, but when I had my Echo Park shop, you know, the reason I closed it, and my rent was dirt cheap, it did okay business, but one of the main things why it didn't succeed, especially now when I look at it, if I'd had it, that area where the shop was, it was like, now it's like fucking gentrified. It's like, good luck getting a shop there I had like $1,300 a month rent or for nothing. But I would see, Hispanic families come in, and you would see like, the kid gets a new board, but he hands it down to his younger brother. And like when the moms come in there and they don't really speak good English at all, and I could tell they're struggling, and they're paying with like quarters and pennies. And I started getting, I remember my mom trying to still provide for me after my dad died, and it just tugged at me. And I was like, you know what? I would give this shit away for free, a lot. And that's how it is now. Even like, I have not arguments, but discussions with my business partner, CFO, about we give out so much to kids. Skate my team, I have like the biggest shop team, bigger than companies, but yet I give out 30, 40, 50 grand a year cost of product to kids to get them to skate. Is it smart? No, but I'm trying to fill a gap that I didn't have, and I'm trying to be there for these kids. Like when people say, oh, you're not married with kids, I'm like, no, but I have kids, and these are my kids. So it's why I do it. I mean, I don't know why I continue to do it. It's like I don't want. It's like the mafia. Once you're in, you can't get out. But it's like that with like this thing. It's like it's become me. It's become Pat Sajak was the fucking face of Wheel of Fortune. Eventually, there comes a time where he had to ride off into the sunset, but he's always going to be known for Wheel of Fortune. I'm sure he had other offers over his 40-year career, but he never took them because he is that dude. And me, I'm that dude. So this is all I know. And I feel like there's a need for me to still try to steer the boat and still try to like make changes in certain people's lives, whether they appreciate it or not. I'm a little bit more cautious about who I open myself up to and who I do things for.
Makes sense.
And literally now what I do with my team, even after a year, I do an assessment. It's like, okay, well, I gave you this product. What have you done? You're not serious about this. You didn't give me no new parts. You're not really striving for this or that. So fucking, you can get discounts, but I'm not gonna. You're off.
Yeah, but that's also fair. I mean,
I never did that before.
Yeah,
but I have to, because even now, like the kids are on the team, they're kind of like, they see that the people I've been a part, the kids that have been around me for a certain amount of years, they see what I do, and now they're kind of like, are my buffer. Like, no, man, you shouldn't fuck with this kid.
Right.
So I appreciate that. So. That's why
it's also good for the kids, but it is good also for the kids who do the extra, right?
Yeah.
Because then they see like, oh, he is actually looking out for me because he's not letting this other kid slack, And I do think there is something to that.
I think but the other thing is I try to teach them life skills, like true story, a kid that works for me, Curtis. He was orphaned at 13. His mom just like dropped him up. I don't care about you no more. Grew up in foster homes. He turned 17, graduated. He wasn't a dollar sign anymore to his family that he was living with. They kicked him out. He struggled, got a jalopy of a car, slept in the car, slept on people's things. I met him when he was still kind of like sleeping in his car, and I gave him a job, and I taught him, and now he's just this person. But the things that he doesn't learn, like, a couple of years ago, I'll never forget this. He called me freaking out. He was driving back from the shop, home from the shop, and he didn't take care of things I told him to take care of. Expired tags, no license. He's like, bro, I just got pulled over. I'm like, okay. He's like, bro, I was smoking weed. I have weed on me, and my license. I don't have a license. I don't have registration. I got tickets, and blah blah blah. I said, calm down. He's like, no, man. Where he lives, all his friends, immediately the cops are going to beat him up, throw him in jail, the whole nine. I said, listen, calm down, be honest with the cops. Are you crazy? I'm like, listen. He's like, man, I'm black. I was like, listen, I'm telling you something. Trust me. Just do this. If they arrest you, I'll bail you out that minute. I swear on my mom. When they come, so listen, I don't have this. I work a couple miles away at the skate shop. I have a job. I've been busy. I have a little weed on me. You know, blah, blah, blah. Just be very respectful. They're going to let you go. No, I'm like, trust me. He did it. He called me up like 10 minutes later. Yo, bro, they let me go. I'm like, they gave me a warning that I have to take care of this. I said, yeah. But they didn't arrest you. Because why? Because you spoke them and your first thing was like you wanted to run away. You wanted to get. But right there, so now, and I hear him later on now, he tells his friends, like, yo, if they pull you over, just do this. And I'm teaching him life skills. I'm teaching them, like, when you walk into a place, like, you shake somebody's hand, look them in the eyes. Open a door for people. Say thank you.
These are big things, by the way.
Yeah,
These are things that are lost on a lot of people in general now.
Well, yeah. It's like, I don't know how many times, like in Brooklyn just recently, when I was there seeing my mom, I held the door open. Granted, I was having a bad day. I was annoyed about something, but I held the door open for this woman, this girl, to the coffee shop, and she didn't even say thank you. And then I was like, what? I was like, hey, you're welcome. She's like, what? I said, you're welcome. She goes, well, I didn't ask you to hold the door for me. I go, yeah, but I have something called manners. I said, should I just slammed it in your face? She goes, really? Are you really? I was like, yeah. I said, learn some fucking manners. Somebody does something. She goes, well, I didn't ask to. I go, you know what? Have a nice day. And then I just walked away. I was like, it's like people don't realize, like, what the fuck do I have to hold a door open for you? I don't need to.
But these simple things actually make us better people
as
a society, right? Like, it's just a friendly interaction. Doesn't mean you have to try to pick her up or any crap like that. It's just,
you know, I tell my kids that are guys and my kids that are girls, like, I tell them two things. I said to my guy friends, the kids, I said, if you're on a date with somebody, whatever, the one thing you should do, other than open doors, I said, always treat your servers with respect. Because that shows who you are. And to the girls, they said, yeah, you know, like I said, you know, you could tell, like, how good a man is how he talks to his mom or talks to the servers that are serving him. If they're nice and respectful, that's a keeper. If they're like, yeah, fuck it, I don't want, then.
Yeah, you're absolutely right.
And people, when they see me, like sometimes they're like, even my girlfriend's like, you're a little, you went a little extra with that one. But I'm like, but I'm just really out. Like, they bring me, thank you so much. It's amazing. Thank you so much. When I pay the bill and I'm leaving, amazing. Thank you so. It's like, okay, you know, it's just like, I don't know.
No, it makes a lot of sense. Actually, something I've noticed on your Instagram too over the years, it always pops up. There's always some random homeless person on Melrose that you're hooking up. Like, honest to God, there's always I mean, I think in Brooklyn we always grew up around crazy people that we always did. Like made friends with.
Yep.
And like weirdly, like it's funny. I tell my wife now, I'm like, we used to just talk to all the homeless and crazy people around us. We knew them. Yeah, we knew them all. Yeah. But like, I noticed that you kind of keep that going in Melrose. Like you always like hook them up with shoes or whatever.
And people get mad at me about that.
Do they?
It's like you feed a cat. It's always like, why are you doing this? They're just gonna hang around. I'm like, because you know what? Oh, that guy's this, that guy's that. I'm like, you know, have you ever spoke to them? I said a lot of them, are crazy. But then my partner Murph, who passed away, I remember we did it as an experiment, and it was a joke, but we did it as an experiment. I remember, and wait, before that even, I did this, and. Well, look, the Murph thing was the best. So Murph, me, and this guy Ross, there was just like, we're leaving the club one night, and like there was this dude, and he looked like Santa Claus, and he, you know, and then Murph and Ross all high, smoking weed, like, you know, they bought him a bottle of liquor. They were just like hanging out with them on the thing, and they're like, They made a deal like, yeah, we'll see you here tomorrow, blah, blah, blah. And Murph and Ross, like, they went the next day early. They got him a hotel room at the Mondrian. Yeah. They bought him clothes, Ross dressed.
Was this just for fun, or did they
There's-
have like a thought in their head? Like,
They had a
oh,
thought in their head, like later on, like Ross was just like, you know what, this guy's on his life. You know, we're gonna give him the best day of his life, but also give him some money and pay for the hotel room for a week, and maybe like he'll find his way. But we're gonna. So it was crazy, but like, and Murph, my partner Murph was a hairdresser at the time. He had a hair salon.
Mm-hmm.
They took this guy. They took him. They showered him. They fucking dressed him up, trimmed his beard, cut his hair, like, and then we all went out with him to one of these like high end Hollywood clubs that we used to hang out at, like the fuck. And we're telling him, oh, he's like, you know, he's an agent. He's like the owner of this, and everybody loves him. And this guy was like, his name was Sam, and like he was just like laughing, talking, dancing. I mean, this guy, it brought us to tears because this guy had the best. He was been on the street for like 4 or 5 years, but he had the best time of his fucking life. And then Ross and Murph took him to Hong Kong, the strip, the in Mexico. It's a bordello.
But still took him down. I mean,
They drove to Mexico with him.
it's a 3-hour drive,
Right,
roughly.
and they got him. They got him like they had their fun, but they said, yeah, we got some motherfucker like 3 hookers and like, and you know he like they got him laid,
Right.
and then they
Best life ever, this guy.
and he had a hotel room at the Mahjong for 5 days, and then I think like I believe Ross like found like a cousin or something, like they try, and I think they found somebody like to take him,
Oh, whoa.
like, you know. So it was,
Hey.
I saw that and I was like, it was for this guy. And like a lot of these people, you start talking to them, not all of them, but if you just talk to them, like the most famous one is Steve, the Birdman on Melrose, that's just like yelling.
Yep.
Turns out the dude you saw my videos, he skates.
Yeah.
He used to be in a glam metal band. And over time, I found out that in 1988 or 89, he took some bad drugs, whatever, but he saw his friend get shot in front of his, like, he got robbed, and the guy was going to kill him and his friend, and blew his fucking friend's head out right there, and he put the gun to Steve's head, pulled the trigger, and it jammed, and then the guy ran. So Steve just, from 1989, that was it.
Yeah.
And that's why he's been like that. So knowing all these things, talking to him, finding pictures of him, because you start talking to him. That's why we made him a skateboard. We give him clothes. We fucking, and then eventually now he moved. He shuttled to, like, he hangs out by Westwood somewhere, by UCLA.
Right.
But why not? What does it cost me?
No, totally. It's kind of weird too when you think about it, because like, I mean, like homelessness and all that shit is obviously a big problem, and you've had challenges with it as well as being nice to some people with your store, obviously. But like, it's crazy that like, if you take the time to know some of these people, you actually find out they're humans and they have real normal stories like all of us, and it could have been any one of us. It's just you'd like to think it's not you, but it could be depending on the circumstances.
And I've seen it happen. I saw, like, there was this kid. He was from he was a promoter. I'll never forget this, at the old location, Brooklyn Projects. He was this promoter. He was from Kenya. Or Nairobi. He was from Kenya. He went to school in London. He came out here. He was trying to be a model, promoter. He saw all the clubs. Then I would see him all the time. Then you don't see him for a while. And then I remember going to like National, where I was doing my nights at National, and there's this dude sitting with a blanket over him, and it was cold and no shoes, and I'm looking at him, I go, I forgot the kid's name. But it was him. I go, what the fuck? He looked like, hey. I'm like, what? It's like, I don't know. I was having some, I'm like, dude, are you all right? Like, dude, like, what the fuck? So, I didn't know what to do. And I was like, fuck, man. Like, let's get you some shoes. Let's get you some clothes. Like, I appreciate I haven't eaten. I'm like, dude, let's get some food. And I took him to my store. I mean, he smelled really bad. My car fucking stunk. I'm not going to lie. But I took him to my store, opened up. And then fed him all that stuff, gave him some money. His parents disowned him because they want him to do something. He had like well-off parents. But long story short, I set him up. I gave him some clothes, gave him some money. I said, hey, man, you can come here. Give him like $500. I don't see him again. 5 years later, my new location, he pops up. I'm like, what the fuck? He's like, thank you. I'm like, what happened? He's like, oh, from there, I connected with somebody else, and I joined the Navy, and I spent 4 years in the Navy, and now I'm out, and now I'm working at this thing. I took this in Navy, and he got back on his feet, and he's like, Hollywood fucked me up. I got mixed up the wrong people and this and but now he's like totally, he was like he had a regular job. I don't know what the fuck I forgot where he worked, but he had like a 9 to 5.
He's back to normal, right? He's a human again.
Right. And the thing is, a lot of these people, when you're like, I see the progression. I see people on the street, and when they first start getting on the street, and hey, you got some food, whatever. And I'm like, I'll give them whatever. But then over time, they get more and more out there because nobody talks to them or whatever. So you have nobody talking to you, walking around, and people just look right past you or don't. It's like, it fucks you up mentally. So that's why I try to talk to them. Some of them are too far gone.
Yeah.
But I try, you know.
Off subject, how do you define success?
That's like a hard question. Success is, I guess success is looking at not what you have in your life, but who you have in your life. That's success. If you have like some solid people that, you know, a loving husband or wife, or, you know, a best friend, you know, or people that have been there for you for 10, 20, 30, 40 years, that's success. You can't buy that. You can't get that. Material things, oh, I have like a house, a car. Well, I've seen people have that and lose that next week. So, you know, that's how I define success.
See, but by that definition, I would say you're successful.
To a certain,
it's easy to find the people who don't fall into that category for you, but I think you have a bunch of people who definitely over time.
Well, you and there's a bunch of people, but like, you know, I mean, yeah, I am successful, to a certain degree. I'm driven because most people. It's funny when people get to know me and see what I go through and everything. They're like, whoa. Like, I'm not giving any of my secrets, but like, you know, with my businesses and stuff, they think it's like larger than life. But then when they go, it's like, they're like, whoa, like how the fuck? Like when I do certain projects, people are like, wait, where's your team? I'm like, you're looking at it.
Yeah.
I'm like, what? I'm like, yeah, I do it all. Imagine if I had a fucking team. I'd be like $100 million a year company, which I don't have a team. It's just me, and my business partner helps me out where he can. And that's it. And I rely on friends, like certain friends. You know what I mean? Like, I would never think that the guy that helps me do my designs is the guy that started LRG. Like, he's actually working with me, which is like kind of like, it's like I started a footwear company. I'm working with Phil Knight. It's like so like what? It doesn't make sense, but it's because he sees what I've been doing and have been doing. He's like, yeah, I mean, you're a fucking solid dude, and yeah, let me help you. I'm like, okay, you know.
Pretty impressive.
Yeah.
You know, we didn't even get into streetwear, and I did want to touch on streetwear because, you know, it's an interesting thing. Again, back when you first started your first store, streetwear was a new kind of concept in a lot of ways. I mean, there was mall brands, and then there was suddenly pop-up shops. And that's what's even crazier about when you opened the store at Marine Park, because there was only a few stores like that in the city, like maybe Union, maybe a couple others that had
Union. That was this Union, and then
Supreme.
We were for Supreme.
No, that's true. Yeah.
Because they got Aaron to work there.
That's right. Oh my God. There was Supreme Aaron.
Right. There was he worked at Clark.
Yeah. Oh, that's right. A Noise. Right. But this is what I mean. There wasn't much of that. And now, obviously, to say, oh, I'm going to open like a streetwear store, everyone would be like, oh my God, definitely you should.
Yeah.
But like, you are definitely, without a doubt, a historian and a connoisseur of streetwear. Without a doubt. You know all the original brands. You know most of the owners and the players in the game.
Yep.
And then coming up new, what's some of the things that you see now that you're most excited about? What's a brand that you...
Nothing.
Brands? Really nothing?
There's like one brand, honestly.
And why?
All these other brands, it's all fake. It's all smoke and mirrors. And what they stand by, what they stand for is all bullshit, because they say they're about one thing, but they're not when you look at it from the other side of the coin. It's all fake. It's like any brand could be big if you're giving out $100,000 a year of $100,000 a month of product to influencers. They come and they go. The one brand that I like, that I watched start from a garage literally and be this behemoth, is a brand called FTP, Fuck the Population. Zach started it in high school, got a job at Huff in the warehouse, and created this, multi-million-dollar a year company, and he's still true to it. He still does things for the kids. He can turn around and sell shirts for $50, $60, $70. He sells them for $30, $25, $30. He's still for the people, and he does it right. He's the only brand. And I'm not just saying that because I sell it. I don't sell it. I sell some of his boards, but he doesn't sell to shops. So it's like I just like what he does and how he moves. But everybody else, it's just the new generation never paid it forward. Like every generation, in the beginning, you had your perverts, your fucks, your splits, your fresh jives. That started going into like the alphanumerics, and then that went into like the brands like the Diamonds, the Crooks and Castles, the 10 Deeps, and that led into like the Hundreds, and then the Primitives and the Crew, and there was every.
That's where it kind of dips off, huh?
Right
after that, really.
But it just doesn't start. It stops because everybody took and didn't put back. Like if you take a tree, plant 2 trees.
Yeah, yeah.
They just took the trees and they didn't plant, and they kind of like ruined it. And now that's why there are no brands. There be a plethora of brands in my shop. For decades, it always be the new brands. They start there and then they blow up. Now there aren't any new brands. It's like direct to consumer bullshit brands.
Do you think that'll change? Do you think maybe with because there'll be such a long time without something that matters, that people will crave something that matters again or mean something?
No, because these kids are maybe in 10 years, but these kids are so accustomed to because they have you could fake it till you make it. You could start a brand, you could buy likes, you could buy comments, you could buy followers, you could put it on certain people, and then sell direct to consumer. You don't need a shop.
But now, obviously, like I can see through that shit, and you can see through that shit because we come from a different time. But I personally believe that people can see through that. So I feel like that weird kind of fake influencer world of bullshit is going to fall apart eventually because it has no foundation, right? It has nothing real to it. So I just feel like eventually you're going to have these kids that come up like these super nerds, which in a way you kind of were, right? You were like super into the shit you were into to the point where you made it your life. And I just feel like that's kind of missing with a lot of people now. But I do think that's going to come back hardcore because people are going to crave it. I hope.
You know what? Right now I don't see it because I've seen the new wave of brands, and it's like there's no substance there. There's no originality. Not there was much originality with us. We're just taking, for us, the real originators were the upstarts were the people in the early 90s, the Sean Stussies, the Eric Brunettis, the Stashes, the Futuras.
Absolutely. I think that shows in your brand too. I like you can definitely see the influence 100%.
Right.
Yeah.
They influenced us. So we had that. So when the third round of brands came around, whether it's Primitive or whomever, they looked at the Crooks and Castles and the second generation of streetwear to get inspired by. So now these kids, they look at people like Virgil and these brands like Off-White and Revenge and all these brands that it's like bad copy. They're trying to copy somebody that are like a third-rate bad copy of something else, and there's no originality. So it's like there's no blueprint for them, and it's like there's no stores anymore. So now it's like people always look at me and like, why don't you sell online? Why don't you push harder online? It's like because it's already flooded. I put my stuff online, but why am I going to be one of 100 million stores? I'd rather be the brick and mortar, have people come in And when people see the business I do, I like my brick and mortar. And I've always said it's going to come back because kids want to come and feel and see. The new generation, they were born with the phone in their hand. It's not new to them. They want to go into a store. That's why vinyl is bigger than it's ever have been.
So weird.
Cassette tapes, because it's a tangible thing.
Yeah.
And that's why intangible things like NFTs was like a fucking money grab.
Yeah.
As much as people say that's a money, I never got into it. I'm one of the only brands and only people. I'm like, that's bullshit.
Yep.
And it was true. As people had expendable income, EDD money, whatever. Let's do this, and everybody was stuck at home. So it was like a perfect timing. But like, just like I tell people, like I was hated on, like, oh, resale stores. I said it's not a business. In 3 or 4 years, it's gonna die. Oh, you're a hater. You're a hater. Really? Well, those Jordans, when you bought and you opened your store in 2021, when it was everybody had money and they were sitting at home, and they, those shoes went for $500. Now those same shoes are going for $200. Why?
Yeah.
Because the bubble burst. It's over. It's so. I don't see originality anymore because it's being these kids are being fed bullshit, and that's why the biggest thing in our industry right now is thrifting. When you look at all these influencers, they're buying they think Affliction and Jenko and Skechers are cool. It's the truth though. You know what I mean? It's
so insane.
It's insane, but
I know,
but
so
that's what they're
it's hard to hear.
Right, but that's what they're going because there's no originality. They're digging through like what's left in the bin. Okay, the generation before them, they didn't want to take the Affliction. They didn't want to take that Ed Hardy shit. So they made that theirs. It's like, okay, but why not make it a little bit of your own? Like like I'm not saying we were original, but when we took inspiration from Fucked, we didn't totally just rip it off. No, we took the aesthetic and we made it our own. We took the aesthetic of Stussy and we made it our own. You guys are just taking it and saying, "Oh, this is ours," and and it's I find it funny when these kids they think they know fashion. It's like, dude, you're wearing shit that I still have in my closet. How are you are you joking right now? Yeah. Like, come on.
It's not original at all.
No, it's not original at all, and that's why like. I joke around. I said, hey, I have another 10 years left in me, 8 years left, because for the last 2 or 3 years, the style was like 90s. Well, I have a lot of that shit. That's why I took inspiration from what I still have in my closet and my collection. So now I'm like, cool. Now it's like the Y2K. I got a lot of that. Then after that, it's going to be mid-2000s, which is like the skinny jeans and all. I'm like, okay, that's when I tap out. Yeah. You know what I mean?
But you can actually, you can keep a few years going.
Right.
Yeah.
I could still fucking do it because I have it. You know what I mean?
That's pretty amazing. Oh, hey, yeah. How did trade show go?
Oh, the trade show went awesome. Again, I saw there was a need for it.
Explain what it is, if you want.
So trade show was like, obviously, it's like a Comic-Con, or like in your word would be the electronic trade show. What's it called?
Oh yeah. Well, I go to NAB, but yeah. I don't know the other one. The CES.
CES.
Yeah, I don't go.
So basically, all the brands go there and they show product and you write orders, and it's a big hobnob. And it used to be the thing in our industry for years, ASR, then Agenda, but there hasn't been one in like 7-8 years. And I always wanted to do it, and I tried for 3 years, and I was told from friends of mine that I looked up to, oh, no, don't. You don't want to do it. You don't want to do it. And, I get kind of annoyed because, like one of my friends, I'm going to put him on blast, is Aaron Levant, who started Agenda. Well, he didn't start Agenda. Louis from GAT started Agenda. Aaron worked for him, and Louis like, I don't want to do this. And Aaron just took it and ran with it, and I helped him a little bit. But
Inside info.
And then Aaron sold it, and he owns Complex Magazine now. He owns Network, the app. But I asked him, I said, hey, we should just help me do this trade show. We're like, oh, what do you want to do that for? Blah, blah, blah. Totally shitting on the idea. I'm like, okay. And I said, you know what, man, fuck him. I'm just going to do it myself. And I got with these people that Informer Group that own Magic, and they own Project and Coterie. They own like all the trade shows. And I met with them. And for a year and a half, I was like, hey, we need to do this in Skate, but it has to be like this. And they believed in me, like, all right, let's try it. And I'm like, really? I'm like, yeah. So they called me on it because I was like, oh, look, I'm going to get everybody. So then the first couple of people I hit up, they're like, oh, I don't know. Then the second batch are like, oh yeah, we were just talking about this. We were just talking about this. We need this. We need this. So then within a month and a half, 2 months, it just started going. And then everybody, and I mean Nike, Adidas, New Balance, Deluxe, Sidewalk Distribution, Huff, Baker Boy, like everybody, everybody started signing up, and I have a trade show, and it was like the most talked about trade show. It had the most energy, the most participants. It was the talk of all the fucking publications, all the trade publications, and that's like this big thing. And now the next one is in February in Vegas, and it's like I have people like that didn't want to be a part of it. Now they want to be a part of it, and now like, okay, well.
That's always the way, though.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. So wait, this is important. We should get to this at some point. If people want to know more about your brands and stuff, where do they find all that?
BrooklynProducts.com.
Okay.
Though I think I should make a Dom website of every, because I have a lot. I have like a skateboard brand. I got like a production. I'm doing a reality show with P-Rod, and I got the scripted show with Adam Sandler. I got all this bullshit going on. But BrooklynProducts.com is what
See, this is a funny thing right now. The whole time doesn't bring up scripted show with Adam Sandler, doesn't bring up reality show with P-Rod. Those are two, you would say, fairly big projects.
So we created this, I had this idea for years. I think I told you about this, and you didn't want to get in on it, I believe. Your company, Optimus, you guys fucked up. Anyway,
I think I made the deck for you on this, but anyway,
yes,
yes. I think I did get involved.
Yes. So it was like this, and it's like this American Idol-esque competition show to find the next great skater. So we started doing it, and then we were missing talent because it'd be easier sell if you have somebody attached to it. So like, hey, P-Rod, he saw it. He's like, oh, I love this. Let's do it. So we got it, and we filmed the sizzle, and there's some networks that are like, yo, this is good. So now we're going to just figure out where it's going to land. A couple of years prior, I think you met him, Oliver Hudson.
Yep.
I said, he sees what's going on in the shop. He sees how I am, and I've known him for years. And he's like, why don't you do a show about your life, dude? I'm like, oh, it's funny you say that because, he's like, dude. And I start telling him things. He's like, what the fuck? You need to do a show. It's like a Seinfeld fucking show.
The shit that goes on a shop on a daily basis is worth a show.
Right. So we created this thing. And then it's a sitcom, a single cam show in the kind of like Curb Your Enthusiasm. That's based on my life. That Happy Madison and Village Roadshow were like, yo, let's do a deal. So that's going on right now.
Now, something like that, if that was to happen, when are we talking? That's probably like 2-3 years out. Probably.
We've been working on it for 3 years.
Yeah.
It should happen by the middle of next year. We're starting to get a lot more now that Happy Madison, they're starting production on part two.
Yeah, part two.
Happy Gilmore
2.
So that was like in their wheelhouse. So now that's going. So now they can. So hopefully next year, we'll have two.
Now something like that. Do you get to stay attached, or is it kind of now it's just kind of sales?
No. I'm attached. I'm an executive producer.
Oh, sick.
I have to. Yeah, I'm attached.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Good.
So
that would suck if it happened.
Well, yeah. No.
Where am I now?
No, and then that's another thing that makes me like kind of scared. It's like with the shops, like once these things go, I'm gonna have to be less. I can't be
right
at the shop. I have to start getting these kids really into the, think of things.
See, this is my point. You still have a lot going on, and you still always have good shit on its way. It's like. That is, well, to me, I think it's success, and I think you are an extremely successful person. I really thank you for coming here.
Yeah,
because I do super appreciate it. Because I think you're also a very interesting person. I think people never get that from you because I've known you a very, very long time. And one thing I do want to make a point about stuff before. One thing I've always known about you, and it's interesting, especially in the old store when I worked for you, Dom's
list?
No, I wasn't gonna get to that. I'm doing nice things, not the mean things. No, but it's like you're the type of guy that doesn't like say no to people. You always try for people, and I've seen sometimes where that's gotten you into trouble, right? Because someone will hit you up for tickets, and you're like, "Yo, I'll get them," and then you forget, and then they flip the fuck out, right?
Yeah.
But at the same time, I've also been on the receiving end of that, where you've got me on a show got me in a show that was super crazy because like it was just super random. It was a Halloween show for Marilyn Manson. I'm gonna tell you really quick, and you were like, "Yo, you're in, don't worry." And I get there, and I'm with another friend of ours, and he's like, "There's no way he got you on the list." I'm like, "Dude, we gotta at least try. I'm not gonna not try." So we drive all the way out to Jersey, which is a bit of a hike. We get there, and I tell the guy I'm on the list, and the guy's like, "You're not on any list. I'm sorry." I'm like, "Fuck." But I honestly, at the moment, if though I was bummed, I really thought, probably just forgot. Like, you probably didn't get to it or whatever happened. No big deal. But now the guy behind me, friend of mine, goes, "Yeah, I told you that fucking scumbag wouldn't get you on there." And I'm like, "Dude, he told me I was on the list, the dude Brian's list." And then he goes, "Oh, you didn't say Brian." And he goes, "Hold on." And then I fucking seen it with my own eyes. Red pencil on the bottom, Glenn with one N, I'm two N's. And I was like, God damn it. Got me in a Marilyn Manson concert.
Well, his real name is Brian.
His real name is Brian. And I said I'm on Manson's list, but there was a Brian's list, and that's what I had to say. But anyway, it's like, I know for a fact you'll come through for people when and if you can, and you always do. Sometimes it doesn't always work out. We all know that. I've tried to help people, and things go awry. It's just the way it is. But I've always seen you as a very successful guy, and I think it's such a testament to really great people that you just still do it, and you still got shit going on. And I personally think it's fucking awesome. So that's why I wanted to talk to you and hear some of these stories. And I think anyone else out there, you should learn more about Dom, and you should go to one of his stores on, what's the address on Melrose?
7427 Melrose Avenue.
It's a good thing you know that. And what's
6227 West 87th Street in Westchester.
Yeah, I still haven't made it to the Westchester store.
And it's right down the block.
It's right down the block.
It's literally 1.8 miles away.
I will make it there one day. I just don't want to go when you're not there because the kids always treat me like shit. I'm like, yo, I know this dude.
You just go in there like, yeah, I own this place. They don't know, but they don't realize.
I don't like doing that shit. I hate people who do that. I'm sure you hate it when people come in and act like, "Oh, Dom's my friend, give me shoes." Like, that's nonsense.
Yeah, they do all the time.
Yeah.
Whatever. But thank you.
Oh, thank you, man. Appreciate it. What the fuck happened to your wrist?
I broke my wrist.
When? Oh, that's right. It just happened. That's
like
right.
7 weeks ago, 6 weeks ago,
that's
7
right,
weeks
that's
ago.
right.
Sucks.
Sorry, man.
I know. Getting old.
It doesn't heal quicker when you get older.
No.
It does not heal quicker.
No, it's weird. Like, I broke this wrist before when I was 15. I have 4 weeks cast. I was like, I'm ready to go.
Didn't even matter.
This like 7 weeks. Like, oh yeah, you gotta go take X-rays. I'm taking X-rays again on fucking Wednesday. It's like, fuck my life. Oh, that's okay.
Hey, we're getting old, but we're still here.
Yes,
that's the
still
most
here.
important thing.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And that's Dom. As you can see, it's not always pretty, but my man definitely does it his way and will continue to do it his way. So I'd like to thank Dom for being my very first guest. I'd like to thank Optimus Studios for this beautiful facility to shoot in. And I'd like to thank you for watching. See you next episode.